Hi, today we're going to print white on black. I've had somebody ask us over our Facebook page, probably one of the most difficult things to print, and probably one of the most common asked questions is how to get a decent white onto a black garment. So we've got this set up today and we're going to crack on with it, and hopefully I'm going to give you 5 or 6 pointers, put you in the right direction. First of all, most important thing is the screen. Choose the correct mesh. You want a 43 to a 60 to put down your base white, your first white, because we're going to put a white down, we're going to flash it, and then we're going to put another white down. So your first white, you want a 43 or a 60, nothing coarser than that, because you want to put a nice smooth white down. And the second screen can be a little bit finer, but if you're printing like we are today, then just pop it straight on top. What's really important as well is that you get the correct coatings on the screens. So what I mean by that, simple screen here, you want all the emulsion on the back of the screen. You don't want it on the top of the screen, you want it on the back of the screen. So when you expose the screen, you can almost feel like a braille effect, and that means it's going to work for you and hold the ink that you need. The next point to remember is glue the palette. I know it's an obvious one, but a lot of people don't seem to get this right. There's 2 ways of gluing a palette. We can use a spray glue, or we can use a wood-based adhesive, which you can put on. No problem at all. Either one suits. I prefer the spray glue, particularly when you're printing sweatshirts, because you have to do it virtually every sweatshirt. So you want to spray the palette, light spraying like that. You don't want to overspray it, you don't want to get too close, you don't want to be too far away. You just need a light tack on there that's going to hold the garment down. With t-shirts, you'll probably find that that will probably last a dozen shirts, and the more it builds out throughout the day, it will last longer. Time to put your garment onto the machine. Give it a flick, pop it back, drop it off. What's really important, give it a nice smooth out, particularly with sweatshirts. Smooth it all the way down, make sure there's no bits and pieces on. You can use a heat press if you want beforehand, and that will absolutely flatten the fibres. If you've got trouble with the fibres coming through, there's a lot of polyester in garments nowadays. When you start doing this, activate static and it starts to come through. So that's a real good tip as well. This is an obvious one, but use a quality white ink. You want a flash cure ink, because there's an additive in it, which means it will flash cure. Difference between flash curing and curing: flash curing will dry at about 100, 120 degrees. Curing, which is the final cure, is 160. We use the Amex ink. We want a nice ink, probably about the consistency of thick porridge. You can thin it down. If you do thin it down, use the recommended thinner or use curable reducer. But try not to thin it down too much, because you want that opacity on the screen. Other tool we need to make sure here, nice sharp squeegee blade. I go in print shops sometimes and they haven't changed the blades for years, so make sure they're nice and sharp. You can even turn them round if you want, but just make sure that they're nice and sharp, because that's what's coming into contact with the garment, and that's what's layering that ink down onto the garment to give you a nice opaque print. Another point which a lot of people miss here is make sure that off contact, and that off contact is the distance between the screen and the palette. We normally set that at about £1's worth, so you're probably looking at about 3mm, 4mm. Obviously when you come to do sweatshirts, you have to increase that, and some people forget that, so you have to increase that to 5 or 6mm because of the thickness. Now that off contact being set correctly, as you print, it should peel off. If you print and it doesn't peel off and you can still see it stuck, then increase the off contact. You want that to, as you print, just peel away nicely. So the exciting bit, we're ready to print. So bring your screen down, you've set your off contact, you've got a good sharp squeegee, you've got the ink in there. You want to do a nice flood stroke. I want a nice 45-degree angle, just there. And I'm going to push the ink back over just once and just twice. 2 gentle pulls over the surface, just to lie down the ink. I'm not looking for opacity on this, I'm just looking to absolutely cover all the garment, make sure there's no bits. If you can see it nice and clear here, you've achieved that. There we go. We've printed it, now we're ready to flash cure it. Again, a very common mistake. A lot of people have the flash cure set too high or leave it under there for too long. As I said before, that ink dries at about 100 degrees and it cures about 160. We want to dry it, flash dry. So we're going to pop it underneath there, and then we're going to give it about that setting, probably about 10 seconds, and check it. Right, she's flashed off for about 10 seconds. Let's bring it back. Always check, just dab it with your finger and make sure that there's no ink on your finger. And then we're going to put down the second coat. So we bring it down, flood it. I'm just going to use one coat on this now, one push, and that goes on top of that dry ink. So that should have sealed. Another coat on top, it should be nice and opaque. Look at that, bosh.